A wooden man reached out to touch a copper component, but was suddenly choked by another copper piece. They yanked and pulled on the wooden man with full force until his body came apart and fell to the ground in pieces. But those scattered pieces were not a loss. They were the wooden man's dinner. It turns out these wooden men were made up of circuit components, but their bodies were inherently flawed. If they don't consume wood, they begin to break apart and collapse. When they eat wood, the hole in their stomach gets filled, and they can continue living indefinitely. But wood, like all resources, is limited. So one wooden man devised a plan. He stationed wooden man number 2 at the door to ambush prey, while he himself began chanting the summoning incantation written on a piece of paper. Soon, wooden man was born. Unaware of the trap, slowly approached wooden man, suddenly lunged from behind and choked. As the two dragged him away, they feasted, easily gaining fresh wooden parts. But the meal wouldn't last long. If they wanted to stay energized and alive, they had to cooperate and repeat the cycle. This time, he picked up the summoning scroll and asked him to summon another new wooden man. However, he thought their duo wasn't strong enough. We need to recruit a third. 3 hunters will be even more efficient. They quickly reached an agreement and summoned another new wooden man. Using a leftover wood scrap, they lured the new wooden man to join their team. From there, the team of 3 began to divide responsibilities. He focused on summoning more wooden men. Other 2 hid behind the door, waiting to ambush. The plan worked like a charm. They successfully devoured another wooden man, but wooden man only received a tiny piece of wood. Feeling cheated, he muttered a new incantation himself and summoned yet another wooden man, who he pulled into his own domain. At this point, the land was split into 2 rival factions. Each side summoned more and more wooden men and began mercilessly hunting the others to gain resources. As time passed, the battlefield was littered with pieces until only those 2 remained. But they had already been consumed by desire. The 2 couldn't coexist anymore. They had to settle who was superior. First attempted to summon new reinforcements, but second bit off his tongue. Furious, first one struck down him in rage, and thus first one became the sole ruler of this world. He had won. He now had more wooden parts than ever, but he was also completely alone. He stood at the edge of the world, staring into the distance. When hungry, he ate scraps from the ground. But as time went on, those scraps ran out too. He wanted to summon a new wooden man, but without a tongue. He could no longer speak the incantation. Days passed. Weakened and hollow, the wooden man stood still until his body finally collapsed into pieces. All that remained was a summoning scroll and scattered wooden parts. Just then, from beneath the floor, a new life was born. A new wooden man emerged, walked to where number 1 had fallen, picked up the scroll, and the cycle of endless conquest began again.